Well, hello, everyone. It's your friend, Laura Muzyka, attorney and human rights advocate and president CEO of Sidewalk Advocates for Life, the nation's largest peaceful sidewalk outreach organization. And this is the Lauren Muzyka Show, your favorite update in the battle for life, family, and freedom. So excited once again to have you with me. So today we are going to talk about a super sensitive, super controversial topic. Raising money. Okay, I'm I'm half kidding, but not completely. Let's face it, for so many people, fundraising can feel really intimidating. It doesn't exactly top most people's lists of fun things to do, right? But if you work for an important cause, it's likely you're going to have to do it at one time or another. It's so important. And after all, how can we do the work that God wants us to do if we don't have the necessary resources? So some of the big questions that we hear are, how do you frame the ask? Who do you approach and when? And how do we gear ourselves up, motivate ourselves to have the conversation? We're going to talk about all that today and more with my favorite expert on the topic, Kevin Fitzpatrick of One Visit Away. But before we get started, a little bit of a spoiler alert. Yes, asking for those resources can feel intimidating a lot of the time, but you can do it regardless. I want you all to hear this, regardless of your personality. Even you introverts can get out there and get in front of people and make a difference. Rest assured, the resources are out there. And I have found that people are more generous than we often expect. Oftentimes, all we need to do is humble ourselves to simply ask, to give people an opportunity to be generous. And you'll be surprised at just how many people jump at the invitation to be a part of what God is doing through you to change the world. I am so hoping that this episode is going to help so many of you out there, my fellow ministry leaders, those of you in the pro-life, pro-family movement and beyond. So let me go ahead and introduce our special guests. Kevin Fitzpatrick is the founder of One Visit Away, a major gift fundraising training company that coaches CEOs of Christian nonprofits on how to grow relationships with their top donors. So his specialty is major gifts. Additionally, One Visit Away provides an online training program that is used by hundreds of organizations worldwide. Early in Kevin's childhood, his mom, this is so amazing, his mom almost died from a massive stroke. She was completely paralyzed on the right side of her body and was miraculously healed through the prayerful intercession of Blessed Francis Xavier Sealos. Seeing this miracle at such an early age has given him the ability to help organizations and leaders reimagine what they believe God can achieve through their work. He is a graduate of the University of Dallas, where he met his incredible wife, Laura. They live in Dallas, Texas, with their 4 daughters, and they have twins in the mix, all really young. Kevin is an expert on princess movies at this point. All right, let's go ahead and welcome to the program, Kevin Fitzpatrick. Hey,
thanks
Kevin.
for having me, Lauren.
Good to have you. I had to throw in the princess movies there, right?
Yeah, I'm ready. If we just want to turn this into a princess podcast, I am down.
You are far more the expert of that now than fundraising, right? So support.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. I thought to myself as we were preparing for this podcast that, I really just wanted to start off singing money, 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 money. But then I stopped myself and told myself I wouldn't do that. Anyways,
but
it's out of my
did.
system. But I did. That's right. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, this is going to be, I think, a real fun conversation. I want it to be fun because for so many people, this is intimidating and not fun, right? But let's go ahead and back up for a second. I would love for you to share what made you do this full time. How did you decide that major gift work, fundraising work was for you?
Yeah. So when I was a student at the University of Dallas, I really didn't know what I was going to do after graduation for a while. I mean, since childhood, the priesthood was on the table. Like that was always something that I felt I might be called to. And so actually my sophomore year at the University of Dallas, during the semester we spent in Rome, I applied to enter the Jesuit order.
Wow.
And through that process, realized that's not where God was calling me. So I came back to UD. I didn't think I was going to come back to UD after my sophomore year. But I came back, and then junior year is when I started dating my now wife, Laura. And I was like, I'm going to have to find some sort of career at some point. And didn't know what I was going to do. But Laura was involved in the pro-life club at UD. And she invited me to a pro-life breakfast, is what she said. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but I'm in. And so went to this event. It was a fundraising event for an organization called Heroic Media. And I went to that event, fell in love with the mission. I saw a gentleman by the name of Mike Murray up on the stage, who is running the Dallas office of Heroic Media. And I saw what he was doing, and I was like, I feel like that's what I can do. I had no idea fundraising was a career option, but the mission of the organization just like really, really struck me. And then it just seemed to click. And so I was thinking that to myself, and then walking out of the event, Laura was there as well. And we hadn't said anything about it, but when we were walking out, she said, I think you could do what that guy's doing.
Wow.
And so that kind of confirmed it. And then reached out to Mike, and he was so gracious. The first time I called him, he, spoke to me and was genuinely interested in me, and went in, started a volunteer internship. That led to a part-time job at the beginning of my senior year, and then started full-time the day after I graduated. But it was really just from that first moment I kind of knew.
Yeah, yeah. What I really noticed in there, by the way, I didn't know all of that background. That's super cool. You were attracted to the mission, right? It was the mission of the organization that motivated you, and you said, I want to help support this. Like, can you speak to that a little bit? Because I think when our hearts are in the right place, it's not just about raising money. It's about the fact that this is a mission that you believe in, that you want to be a part of, right?
Yeah, that's 100% it. It's actually, I'm writing a book on this topic, and the idea is essentially that all of the greatest fundraisers are obsessed with making a particular vision a reality.
Yeah.
And fundraising is a natural, like, if you're going to go make this vision a reality, you're going to go get the money, no matter what it takes, no matter how much time, no matter what, challenges you have to overcome, fears you have to overcome to call somebody you're intimidated by. Like, you have to make this thing happen. And so that's what I saw at that event. Like, at the time, Heroic Media was running TV commercials, and they were just so moving. And having grown up somewhat in the pro-life movement, like in high school, at Jesuit in New Orleans, we had a very strong pro-life club. And so I would go out to pray outside of the abortion clinic on Saturday mornings, and had gone to the March for Life in DC every year. And so that was always like on my heart. And then seeing these videos and just like the compassionate approach they were taking towards reaching women. Yeah. I was just like, how have I never seen this before? And how is this not present everywhere? So yeah, I just wanted to make that a reality, and felt like I could help.
It's funny. You don't know how many stories I heard from men where their wife dragged them to a pro-life breakfast or pro-life event, and the rest is history. That's David B. Wright's story, right? And he's the founder of 40 Days for Life, but he credits his wife for taking him to that very first meeting, right? So God uses those ladies for sure. Let me ask you this, Kevin. Why do you think people are tempted to get intimidated by this? Like, where is the fear coming from? I mean, I have my own answer to that, but I want to hear from you as somebody who works with leaders across the pro-life, pro-family movement.
Yeah, I think it's a variety of things. I think it's a little bit unique to each person. But at the end of the day, there is something particularly vulnerable about speaking to someone in some sort of live format. So whether it's over the phone to like schedule a visit, or whether it's in person to go ask somebody for a gift, you're exposing yourself to rejection.
Yeah.
And at least, I mean, for many of us, I think for most of us, myself included, it goes back to like childhood stuff. of
Yeah.
like even things when you were a little kid and you just felt like, for whatever reason, I'm, I don't know, less than, not important, shouldn't be here, not worthy, whatever the thing is. It's like when you go to pick up that phone and make that difficult call, you are giving someone the opportunity to say, and this almost never happens, but you are giving someone the opportunity to say, I don't like you. The way you said this was annoying. Please go away. And that doesn't feel good for any of us. And when you like, I'm being a little bit dramatic here, but
Yeah.
like that I think ultimately that is why we don't want to approach a donor, is because anytime you open that door to like ask for something, someone
Yeah.
can say, "Go away.
Yeah.
I don't like you."
Yeah. Well, and I know for me, I joke that I love to make people feel comfortable. And money for so many people is attached to so many things, right? It's attached to so many aspects of life. And I think for me, that's also the case, is I like people to like me, right? So I don't like to put something
Right.
in front of somebody where they could say, oh, that's not for me. And it does feel very vulnerable to humble yourself and to ask. How do you help people work through that? And I can speak to that personally too, but like, how have you helped other leaders to work through that concern?
Yeah, so I mean, one is having the benefit of, I've personally been on over 1,000 face-to-face visits with donors.
Yeah.
And I spend all day, every day talking to people that ask people for money.
Yeah.
And I've interviewed like over 100 people on my podcast telling stories of asking for money. And there is only one instance in all of that that I have ever heard of a donor becoming angry because they were asked for too much money. And in that one instance where the donor like stormed into the office of this church and was like, "Who told the bishop to ask me for $250,000?" And the lowly gift officer at the time was like, that was me. And the guy just goes and, gets so angry, and he was this very wealthy oil tycoon or something.
Yeah.
Lets this gift officer have it. You shouldn't be asking me for more just because I have more, all this stuff. Furious, irate. The next day, the check for $250,000 comes in.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
so I bring that up to say that like part of what I can do is show people this fear that we all have. It almost never happens. And then even in the one time that it did happen, the donor gave the gift. And I think that ultimately it's like sometimes like part of our role as fundraisers is obviously to fund our mission, but it's also to help people grow in generosity. And it's like, if you want to be a great leader in any capacity, you need to help people be uncomfortable. And it's like the number of times people get from the car dealership or the fancy watch seller or like fancy purses or whatever the thing is, like, ooh, you need the latest iPhone. The number of times we get messages every day saying, spend more money, it's going to make your life great, you're going to be happy. People get that all day, every day. And people that are profiting off of it, and credit card companies and whoever, have no problem making someone feel uncomfortable so they can buy something that they don't need. But how many times do we help someone? Like, it's a good thing to help someone who has millions of dollars or excess in any capacity to question, can I be doing more to serve the least of these?
Yeah. That's so good, Kevin. I know for me, I remember you and I having a meeting where you actually challenged me to take the focus off of myself and look at the mission that I was serving as the founder, president, CEO of Sidewalk Advocates for Life, right? And I still remember that meeting, you asked me, do you believe in this? Do you see it working? And if that's true, who are you to get in God's way? That you have an opportunity right now, unlike anybody else, to put this opportunity in front of somebody to not spend money on the fancy watch or the really nice car, which again, I wouldn't begrudge anybody for having, right?
Right, yeah.
From having, but You have something so much bigger, grander, blessed, and that is the opportunity to save children from death. The opportunity to save mothers and families from a lifetime of regret and trauma. I mean, what is better than that? And I still remember walking away and thinking, wow, like I got to get the focus off myself. And I'm not even meaning to call anybody selfish. I wasn't even meaning to be selfish, but I was putting too much emphasis on myself. You know, they often say, for example, in public speaking, that if you can get on that stage and take the focus off of how nervous you are, the fact that everyone's looking at you, you know, they're waiting for you to trip and fall or stumble all over your words, right? If you can instead focus on the fact that you were at that podium and you were there to give that audience a gift, and you're the only one that can give them that gift, that's where things change, right?
Yeah. And that's exactly it. And it's one of the things I would do when I was at Heroic Media. Is there was one of our partners is a pregnancy help center. One of Heroic Media's partners was a pregnancy help center up in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
They're actually a client of mine now, but they had a mission video that came out years ago, and it was so powerful. I would watch it almost every morning before I started making calls, and it like had me in tears basically every single day, because it was and it ended with this woman who had been impacted by their work and chose life for her kid. And you can see the little baby running around in the video, and she's in tears and she's asking people to give, and it just makes me think like what you were saying, that the emphasis off of us, it's like, think about that little baby. That baby cannot ask for help, but like we can. That's why we need to overcome that fear and make the call, because there's nobody else in the world who's going to do it.
Yeah. And I've often found that people say no. Well, not often, always they say no, not because they don't like me. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there who don't like me and they're just not saying it. I don't know. But they're saying no because maybe finances are tighter. They would love to give, but they can't right now, or they need to give something different. Or like, I still remember talking to a donor and he said, gosh, we would love to give, but we just had a miscarriage at 20 weeks of pregnancy. And my wife is really going through it right now. And that turned into a ministry call, because I was able to give them resources to help them through that. And that to me is a successful call. I may not have gotten money from that family, but I did something so much greater. And what I have found is that these phone calls, they turn into ministry. I still remember another donor. I asked her, why did you come to us? Like, why give to Sidewalk Advocates for Life? And she said, well, the best answer ever, right? I was in the military and I was raped, and I drove to the abortion facility like 3 times trying to figure out whether or not to go through with it. And I went through with it, and I've regretted that abortion every single day. So now I can help a mom who's in crisis. I can give and make a difference. And that was very healing for her. And I just remember stepping back and going, wow, Sarah, that's the best answer anyone's ever given me, you know?
Yeah.
Because it really isn't about the money. Money is just a tool. It's just a resource. It's a gift that we've been given by God to make a difference. What do they say? Like, money is a terrible master, but a wonderful servant. Right? Money is always attached to something else.
Yeah, and I think your story there and those examples are exactly it. That's one of the biggest shifts that helps people to realize that fundraising is amazing.
Yeah.
Is that I think when we start out and don't really know what we're doing, at least I know I thought fundraising was about what I tell the donor. Like, okay, I got to get the visit so I can tell them how awesome we are, and then they'll give us money. But it's the total opposite. We get the visit so that we can get the donor, and it's so we can get to know the donor.
Right.
And it's like, that is the big difference that happens. Like basically every other type of fundraising is communication from the organization to the donor or to the prospective donor. It's just like outbound information, and then we hope you give us money. But in major gift fundraising or like relational fundraising, it's I want to know you. I want to know why you gave a gift to this organization. And that's when you can understand those things about the donor, that's where you get into the ministry. That's where you get into like knowing why people do this and really getting to understand them.
Yeah, so good. Exactly. I actually just met with a donor this morning, and one of my first questions is, why did you come to us? Why Sidewalk Advocates for Life? Because God has put something on their heart. This is ministry that they're doing, and I want to find out what God has called them to do and match that with an opportunity that we have, right? Because again, they're not giving to Sidewalk Advocates for Life. They're not even giving to Lauren Muzyka, even though they say people love to give to people and they love to know the leader of the organization. That's important too for you leaders to hear. They want to get to know you. They want to trust you. They want to make sure their money is stewarded well. But at the end of the day, this is a ministry that has been put on their heart that God is moving them to be a part of, right?
Yeah.
So good.
For sure.
Let me ask this, Kevin. One of the things that blew my mind, because I grew up in a, nice middle-class family, it's the idea that someone out there can literally sit down today and write you a 5 or 6 figure check. Like, you reassured me that the resources are out there, that we can boldly approach the throne of grace in our time of need. I mean, these resources are out there, right? But it took a little bit for me to get out of my own way, out of my own head, and get my mind around the fact that I could ask for something like this. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So similarly, I think a lot of it has to do with the environment you were raised in.
Yeah.
And like the environment you're in more recently, I guess, like kind of who you spend time with, stuff like that. Because I grew up, my mom was a teacher, my dad worked in law enforcement. We did not have, we weren't going on the yacht on the weekend. And so, like the idea that someone could just write a check for $10,000 is shockingly amazing. In fact, I was thinking of this funny story recently about how when I was in high school, it was probably my 8th grade year, because in New Orleans, high school starts in 8th grade for whatever reason. But so it was probably 8th grade year. I was at Jesuit, and we were sitting around at lunch, and one of my classmates, his parents were both doctors, I think. And I don't know how the topic came up, but we were talking about like how much money people made. And I remember he said his parents made $50 an hour. And I was like, no, they don't. I was like,
what?
I was just laughing.
Yeah.
I was like, there is no one on earth that makes $50 an hour, Johnny.
Right.
And it's just funny, like when you the environment that you're in is what you think is everybody's reality.
Yeah.
So I mean, I couldn't even believe that $50 an hour was possible. And then more recently, when I first started at Heroic Media, I got a visit with an executive at a publicly traded company. And if most executives that work at publicly traded companies, their compensation is public record. So I just like looked up what this guy's income was, and I could see my salary at the time was $35,000, and his compensation was just over $3 million a year. And so I did the math. It was like he made approximately $57,000 per week compared to my $35,000 per year.
Wow.
And it just that was one of the moments for me that was like, okay, my reality is not everyone's reality. And again, it's like, stop thinking so much of yourself. Other people have a very different reality than you.
Yeah. Well, and earlier in last season, I interviewed Joe Evermore of Superhero Sidekick, and we talked about vision and a lack of vision, that this is a crisis in the kingdom. And literally in Proverbs, it says, without a vision, the people perish, I've heard Dave Ramsey on his podcast, a famous Dave Ramsey, say that if you don't have a vision, you're a roadkill baby. At some point, you're just, you're part of the whims and follies of life if you don't know where you're going and have a direction and understanding. And I think about that so much when it comes to support raising, to fundraising, that if we can't have at least an idea of vision for what's possible in our ministries, we can get in our own way so quickly. you know?
Yeah, and so here's a good for anybody listening that's like, what we're not describing is that every single pro-life donor you ever talk to makes millions of dollars a year. That's obviously not the reality.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest questions people come up with is like, well, how much do I ask for? I think, again, this goes back to asking questions and getting to know the donor. The thing we want to do here is basically just ask the donor. It's like if they've come in with a first-time gift of $1,000 or maybe $5,000, at some point in the relationship, we're going to ask them questions to better understand what their capacity is. So like, Bob and Sue, I saw y'all gave an incredibly generous $5,000 gift. I'm curious, like, where does that place Sidewalk Advocates in terms of your other giving priorities? And, we're just trying to get them started talking about their giving and who else they give to. Because at the end of the day, like, if you ask people that trust you questions about their giving, a lot of times they'll answer fairly openly. It's not always the case, but if we think about it less in terms of a hostage negotiation where we have secret information over here and the donor has secret information, it's like, no, we're on the same team. This is what we're trying to do. Tell me about what your reality is, and let's see how we can work together.
Yeah, so good. Well, you alluded to this. Yeah, can you go ahead and tell us, when it comes to fundraising, support raising, major gifts, what should we be doing? And then what do we want to stay away from, if you had to kind of summarize that? And I know you've got like a whole ginormous course around this that people can partake of. We'll give people the opportunity to know about that at the very end, or the opportunity to work with you. But if you had to just very concisely outline what to do and what not to do, what would you say?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest thing is you need to identify who you should meet with, and then you need to go meet with those people. Yeah. And very simple, like very basically speaking, especially for organizations that are smaller and, not quite as well, like if you're working for a university with a $500 million budget, you have these systems in place already. But for most smaller, like pro-life groups, you have a list of, I would start with the, pick a number, top 50 donors in the history of the organization, and just reach out to all of them to schedule a visit. And super simple request. And I'll give some free stuff people can get, so you don't have to write all this down. But basically just like, hey, Bob and Sue, this is Kevin with Acme Nonprofit. The reason I'm reaching out is to schedule a visit regarding our organization. How does Tuesday at 10 a.m. look for you? We make the request. People say yes, especially to founders. If you run the organization or you're the founder, people want to be in front of you. Yeah. Make the request, you go see them, and then we just need to get to know them. We need to find out, what does their current gift represent? It's so easy to assume, especially going back to if you didn't grow up with a ton of money, if somebody's giving you $10,000 a year, many times we just assume, well, man, $10,000 a year, that's gotta be the most they can give us, because that is a lot of money. Yeah. But that might be the smallest gift that person gives every year. Until you've met with them and asked questions, you have no idea. So it starts with identify who you need to meet with, which is probably just your current top donors. Go schedule meetings with them, get to know them, and be very upfront. And eventually, as you get to know them better and understand their capacity, ask for a specific number. So and I'll just give it away. I have an online training program. It's called Major Gift Millions. It's normally $1,500 for one person or $5,000 for a team. If you're listening to this and you work for a pro-life organization, I'll give it to you for free. Just send me an email, Kevin. We can put it in later, but it's just kevin@onevisitaway.com, and I'll get y'all set up in there for free. But basically, you just need to go see the people, get to know them. One mistake people make commonly is they pick the wrong group of people to go see. Again, they just assume, well, the people that are giving to us, they've got to be giving at their capacity. They know what we're doing. Obviously, they'd be given as much as they can. That is not true. If you're not meeting with people and asking them for a specific number, it's very rare that they're giving anywhere close to their capacity. Yeah. So a lot of times we just assume, well, these people are already giving, we got to go find new people. And
Yeah.
that's the mistake, is just like, well, this person's rich, so let's go talk to them. Rich is not a very high priority in terms of what you're looking for in a pro-life major gift donor. You want, because I mean, there's lots of people that make a ton of money, but aren't generous or do not care about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so it's like the people who have raised their hand with dollar bills and said, I love what you're doing.
Yeah.
Not only is that your best approach financially, but it's also just the right thing to do, is to treat those people well and not ignore them before you try to go find the rich people or something.
Yeah. I know everything for me shifted when I really saw these folks, not that I didn't before, but really treated them like they were part of our team, right? Because I have, you could argue, the opportunity to do this full time, whereas they didn't for various reasons, or at the very least, the calling to go do this full time, right? And this is their way of being a part of what God is doing. And just like you said, I find so many donors where it's the widow's mite, right? They're giving so much, even though they live this very simple life. And they give so generously. And some of these folks are way more generous than the folks who have way more capacity. And so I love how you allude to the fact that it really is a balance. You know, let's find people that are motivated to be a part of what we're doing and put those opportunities in front of them. And sure, you know, we no doubt have people in our portfolios who have a ton of capacity that would love to be doing more if they just heard from you a little bit more, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Heard from us.
And I'll give you two more quick common errors, because I think they're super important. Is one, don't ambush people. This is where, like, it's very easy for, like, let's say when I was at Heroic Media, if I had a wealthy uncle, for instance, and I just reached out to my wealthy uncle Steve, and I was like, hey, Uncle Steve, I'm going to be in town, would love to get lunch. And like, you have some other relationship with this person. So it would be easy to get in front of them. And Uncle Steve's like, oh, Kevin's coming to town, I'd love to see him. And then you go have lunch, and then all of a sudden you're pitching him on your nonprofit and asking him for money. And it's just, that is one of the worst things you can do. Right. If you want to have a conversation about someone, about giving, be very clear, be very direct. If you know, the better you know the person, the more direct you need to be. Like, if this is a close friend of yours or a family member, you have to say, I'm reaching out to you to talk, like, in an official capacity with Sidewalk Advocates for Life, to discuss generosity. I'm being so clear so that you have the opportunity to say, yes, I would like to have that conversation, or no, I would not like to have that conversation. And regardless, you know, whatever you choose, I'm here to serve you in your relationship with Sidewalk Advocates, and will change nothing about our friendship or anything like that. Because you need to give people the opportunity to say, I don't want to have that conversation. Because if you give them the opportunity to say, I don't want to have it, if they say, I do want to have it, now they're really invested, and you can freely talk about it without this uncomfortableness, because you know you're doing something weird. Yeah,
absolutely. So good. Kevin, in closing here, can I have you take a minute to talk to those leaders who are just really freaked out about doing this? What would you say to them to just encourage them right now? You know, they're feeling frozen. I know I had a moment early in our history where I was like, Sidewalk Advocates for Life is going to fail if I can't figure out how to do this, right? I had many sleepless nights, especially early in the ministry, where I knew I had to figure this out for my personality, my unique vantage point in the organization. What would you say to them? And then how can people work with you if they need a little bit more support?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, the first thing I would say is, if you are in a position that you are required to raise money, it is highly likely that that is because God has called you to this. And like, he's not going to call you to something that you're going to be terrible at. And like, truly anyone can do this. People think I think people have this idea that there's a type of person that is an effective major gift fundraiser, and I work with a lot of people, and they are wildly different in their personalities, in their age. I've got a client that's 90 years old
Wow.
and was a doctor for 50 years.
Wow.
Like, this is not, this is very uncomfortable to him. I mean, anybody can do this because it's not about what you say. It's not about, I have these like super effective, persuasive language techniques. It's, can you ask questions? Can you care about people? And can you listen? Mm-hmm. And then that is 95% of it. And then the last 5% is just at the appropriate time when the table is set, you will need to say, Bob and Sue, I would like you to consider a gift of $10,000 to our organization this year.
Yeah. So good.
And then just let it sit.
That's the big challenge right there, is you ask and you shut your mouth and let them respond, right? It's a big thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, anybody can do it. I promise you, if you are required to do it, it's because God has called you to this.
Yeah.
And the people that your organization serve they're counting on you to make that effort and deal with the discomfort. And yeah, and I think it's one of the reasons I want everyone listening to this who's working for a pro-life organization to get the course for free, because I don't want to tell you, I don't want to just tell you to go do it and then not have a clear path on how to do it. Like, this course is everything you need to know. And if you go through it, I promise you, if you do those things, you're going to have success. If you want a more one-on-one approach, like my work with Lauren, just reach out to me, Kevin at onevisitaway.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. And yeah, hope that helps.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, you've been a great blessing to me personally and to our ministry. I want to say the first year that we were working with you, our donations went up 60%. So it made a huge, huge difference in the ministry of Sidewalk Advocates for Life. And I know that so many of your clients have similar testimonies. So thank you for the service that you provide to the kingdom, helping other people to be more generous and helping us to be more humble and put ourselves in front of people and ask, right? It really is. There's so much of the spiritual life in this that it's not even funny. That's probably a whole other podcast, but I really appreciate everything that you do. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for everything. I mean, that's one of my keys to success in coaching now is picking the right clients. And like, it really is. I mean, what Sidewalk Advocates, it's like the combination of Sidewalk Advocates just being like, this is a simple, straightforward, highly effective and measurable approach that is repeatable in all these locations. Like, perfect case of support, essentially, combined with great leadership in you, someone that has dedicated their life to this, that people know and trust. Like you were saying, I mean, it is a huge reason that people give is the level of trust and respect that they have for the leader of that organization. And so, yeah, you've done that extraordinarily well, and thrilled to see all success.
Awesome. Thank you. No, we're so blessed. What a great team we make. I appreciate it, Kevin. So thanks for being with us today. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right. Well, a quick closing thought here. You know, it really is so funny that so many of us are uncomfortable really asking for what we need. But would you believe that Scripture is filled with admonitions and even commands for us to ask God for what we need? In fact, I would submit that the people who often get what they need are not people who just have the need, but the ones that ask. Hebrews 4:16 says, "Let us boldly approach the throne of grace with confidence so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need." John 15:7 says, "If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask for whatever you wish, and it will be done for you." Mark 11:24, "Whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." Matthew 7:7 says, Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you. We have a God that so longs to give us every good gift. So if God himself is telling us that we must ask in order to receive what we need, how can we say no? No, I'm not brave enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm too shy to approach that potential donor and ask for what my team and my mission needs. If our good God desires for us to succeed on this ever important mission on earth, how much freedom and confidence should we have in approaching our brothers and sisters and fellow believers here on earth? So I just want to encourage you today to go forth boldly, not only asking in prayer for what you need, what we need, but asking our communities for the support that we need, whether financial, volunteer, or in kind. Again, if God is for us, who can be against us? I just encourage you to get out there, do your best, and let God do the rest. All right. Well, thank you again so much for joining me for another episode of the Lauren Muzyka Show. We'll be back here at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central on the Sidewalk Advocates for Life Facebook page, YouTube channel, or wherever you get podcasts. Thanks so much, everybody.